This is the Concealed Carry Podcast, Season 11, Episode 4. And welcome to the Concealed Carry Podcast, part of the concealedcarry.com network, brought to you by HK. Today is Wednesday, February 19th, 2025, as of the recording of this episode, and is coming to you as a pre-recorded interview that I was able to conduct with the president of CCW Safe, Kent Brown. We had a lovely time speaking together for over an hour, actually, which I was so appreciative of his time to really kind of dig down into the nuts and bolts and what makes CCW Safe, what defines their culture, their people, their values as a company. And I really enjoyed having this conversation with him in their booth at SHOT Show 2025. We had a great time together. So no surprise here, today's episode is sponsored by CCW Safe. Head on over to ccwsafe.com and check out what they have to offer. And I think that you're going to find really quickly as you listen to this interview today with Kent, just how much they care and value their members. I think more than any other program out there on the market, hands down, period, and stop right there. But check it out. And in fact, if you're wondering about which plan is the right plan for you, let me make this really simple and easy for you. On their main website, click on membership, or I guess just hover your cursor over membership and move down to Plan Advisor. If you select Plan Advisor, it's going to bring up a customized step-by-step advising tool. It'll walk you through, ask you a few questions, what you're looking for, what you need, all of that, and help you identify the best plan for you. And the great thing is there's a lot of different options, including different price options to fit just about any budget. So I hope that you'll consider doing this. And again, go to ccwsafe.com and consider signing up today. And those of you that are members of Guardian Nation, our membership program, where you get access to amazing online training content and a bunch of other benefits, discounts, products that we will send you every quarter, but you also get a discount off of CCW Safe membership. So make sure you take advantage of that if you're a Guardian Nation member. And if you're not, learn more about Guardian Nation today by going to guardiannation.com and getting signed up. So with that, let's jump into this interview now with Kent Brown, president of CCW Safe. Hey everybody, it's Riley Bowman here at SHOT Show 2025, sitting down with a very special guest in the CCW Safe booth. First time you guys have exhibited here, if I recall, and this is, who am I talking with? President of CCW Safe, Mr. Kent Brown.
Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Great to be with you, Riley. Yes, it is our first time exhibiting at SHOT Show.
Yes.
We got some new things that we're doing, and so we want to get to the right audience and be seen and let everybody know all the great stuff that we're doing for our partners. We have a certified partner program we're rolling out so that they can share our amazing memberships with their students, their customers at their range or retail store. Very exciting.
Yes. Folks that have been listening to the podcast for a long time, you should know, I mean, if it's not obvious, we're sponsored by CCW Safe. It's been sponsoring the podcast for a couple of years. And CCW Safe has been my personal choice for self-defense legal protection for, I think, 5+ years now. And I mean, the reason why is because we frankly think you're the best. And we're going to talk about that, why we think that is, and I'm going to let you speak to that as well, Kent. But here, you want to know one of the things that sold me on CCW Safe in the beginning.
Okay.
Was getting to meet, and I know that not everybody gets this opportunity, but you know, this is my experience, and so that's why I'm sharing it. But getting to meet and getting to know the executive team at CCW Safe. In the beginning, the founders, you got Kyle, you got Stan, you got Mike, okay? Founders of CCW Safe. I remember being hosted over at an event with the whole team and getting to know them, and I could just tell from talking with them. Like, you can tell when people are being fake. You can tell when people are trying too hard. You can tell when people care about money and not people. And that's never been the impression I've gotten from all of your team and your folks at CCW Safe. And so that was my first experience, was like, wow, these are quality people. And these are people that care about people. I mean, all you got to do is meet Stan Campbell.
Of course.
To be like, I mean, he'll want to immediately bring you in for a bear hug. And then, and then whispers in your ear like, "I love you, man." You're like, that's the kind of people that you have at CCW Safe. And so I was like, these are good people, and I like to work with good people. And that's kind of like what started the whole journey with CCW Safe. So that's my story.
Yeah, I'll tell you, they started the business. I sometimes even hate to use that term, but they started the organization for the right reasons, that they wanted to bring a level of service and care to everyday gun owners, people who were carrying, people who had a firearm at home for self-defense, because they had been law enforcement officers and they were protected by the FOP
Right.
for officer-involved shootings. And when you're in the FOP and you have an officer-involved shooting, you get extremely good care. You get the best of the best attorneys, you get counseling, you have all this process, every detail is taken care of. And when they retired, they really were concerned, like, well, who's going to take care of us now? And they looked at the things in the marketplace and they were like, oh, this is not really very good. It's not even adequate protection for us if we get involved in an incident. So they started the company in order to bring that same level of care that they got as a police officer to everyday citizens. And it's really elevated since then. We continue to add to the service offerings, continue to add to the team of experts that we have on staff. And we just exist for one reason, and that's to take care of our members in the aftermath of a self-defense incident. We also do training and education so we can try to help them avoid that altogether.
Right.
But, a self-defense incident is not something that you choose to happen to you. It gets thrust upon you. And
That's right.
So what happens after that is where we come in. And nobody does the things that we do to care for our members. So it's a pleasure and an honor, honestly, to be a part of the organization that they started and to carry on the mission that they set forth, and the member is the North Star. The best care for them is always the guiding principle, and that's all we do. So it's a really great place to be a part of.
I love how you explained that. Yeah, it's very evident again in interacting with your team, and the more I get to know your team, everybody over there. I get the sense of that. That's like the culture that I feel, that I sense, that I observe about CCW Safe is everything like you just described right there. And focusing on the members, I mean that has to be your mission, or else you'll lose sight of things and then end up somewhere you don't want to end up. And that's easy to do in this world where suddenly, maybe a company gets more focused on profit and growth. I mean, growth is important. Making money is important too. I mean, if those things don't exist, then why even have a business or an organization in the first place? But focusing on the member, that's your service. That's what you do.
Yeah. Again, I say this a lot, and it sounds to some people like it's just corny, for lack of a better phrase. But if we take the best possible care of our members, everything else takes care of itself.
Yeah.
We'll grow. We'll be profitable. All the good things that need to happen for the organization happen because we do good things for the members. And so that's where it begins and ends. We don't measure, profit per member and, how much did this incident cost? Like, we just do what's right, and then everything else takes care of itself. Even when I joined the organization, Riley, the business, they started it 13 years ago. 2011 it got going, and then 2012 they really got a few members. And then, like a lot of people in the firearms or firearms related industry in 2020 and 21, everybody's business just blew up because of the riots and the social unrest and all these things that were going on. And the same thing was true in the self-defense legal services industry. Everybody wanted a membership, and so the business really was growing dramatically during that time, and they had the sort of foresight to look and say, hey, we're retired police officers and an attorney, Kyle. Like, we've got the business in great shape, but it's now growing so fast and so big that we need to ensure that we always have the right amount of resources and that the processes and systems are in place to do what we do, which is take care of the members. And the scale of that is getting bigger and bigger. So let's hire somebody who can do that part of it, because we've sort of outrun our expertise on that. And so when they had approached me about helping in the business, and actually I had not even heard of the industry when they contacted me. And my wife and I were firearms owners. We had them at home for self-defense. We were shooting, a few times a year at the range. We didn't really carry. And we started researching the industry. Two things popped up. One, we were like, well, even if we don't take this opportunity, we're going to get a membership, because we didn't really even understand, and this is 4 years ago, what could happen to us financially, what could happen to us potentially in terms of losing our freedom because of a self-defense incident. Most people are thinking, what's self-defense? Like, why would there be any legal proceedings from self-defense? And of course, you guys have done a good job of letting people know about that. So, and then the second thing was really researching the opportunity that exists in the industry, right? You're going to know these numbers probably better than I do, but there's approximately 84 million gun owners in the U.S., plus or minus a few million.
Right.
Concealed carry permit holders, 22, 24 million, somewhere in that range.
Right. Yep.
If you take a look at the whole industry that we're in, and you add up everybody's memberships, across all the competitors, it's less than 2 million people have a service like this. So there's still a tremendous opportunity to take care of people, that they're going to get into something and then they're going to get the shock of their life when the criminal justice system starts to crank up against them until they can prove themselves innocent. It's going to be very costly, and that's what we're here to take care of, is make sure that they can get the best possible outcome for their circumstances, and not have to worry about the finances, and not have to worry about what are the resources and what's going to happen next. We just take over and get them all the way through that process. So as long as their incident has the right circumstances and facts, they're going to get a really good outcome.
And I'll throw one more statistic at you, because you mentioned how many gun owners are there, how many permittees are there, how many are those that actually have or are members of a service like what you provide. Here's another statistic. The most recent research on this suggests that there's, on the conservative side, 1.2 million incidents per year, self-defense incidents where a gun is involved.
That's right.
Right? So that's not insignificant either. And not every one of those is going to be involved to a point where it may require legal representation, perhaps. Some of those are resolved relatively quickly and simply. But I'll tell you what feels a lot better is knowing that you have something backing you up, because even there absolutely are and have been cases, including some pretty big, high-profile ones, that were incidents of self-defense, justified self-defense, but they are completely life-altering for the people involved. Financially, emotionally, psychologically, jobs and lifestyles and everything completely altered for sometimes the rest of their life.
Absolutely. We have a member, we've talked about the case many times over the years. You're probably familiar with it. But it occurred about 7 years ago, might be 8 years ago now. He was attacked by the same guy 3 times in the same day, eventually used his firearm to defend himself, and he shot the other person and they died. It was completely justified. Evidence everywhere in his favor. He was still arrested and charged with murder. It took about 2 years to get through the trial. We spent a little over $400,000 on his defense. Now, back to your original points. So he lost his job almost immediately because he was charged with murder.
Yep.
The stress of the whole process, he got divorced. So his marriage came apart, strained relationships with his children. Hard to explain, when children's friends see the news or read the internet, oh, your dad did this? Yep. So very, very difficult. So that was that many years ago. And, of course, he's still in touch with us to this day regularly throughout the year, particularly he and Mike, because Mike had been through a similar incident. So they talk on the phone all the time. But I happened to be with him about 3 or 4 months ago. We were filming a little bit of a documentary that's coming out on CCW Safe in a month or so. And we were down in Florida, and we were sitting at the bar having a beer after we had done the work during the day, and we were talking, and he was reiterating how grateful he was about everything that we had done for him, and I said, yeah, it's nice to come out, completely acquitted, innocent, and get that behind you. And he said, well, that is great. He goes, but it never gets behind you. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, there's not a week that goes by that at least several times that week I don't think about that I took somebody's life. He said, even though that person had attacked me, they were married, they had kids. He said, I have no discomfort that I did the wrong thing. Like I was going to die if I didn't do that. He said, but you've still taken another person's life. And he goes, I don't think that ever goes away. I don't think there's ever going to be a time where I don't think about that. And of course, we have counseling services as part of our programs, and he did all of that. But he's like, I'm comfortable with where I'm at, but I'll never be able to shake that feeling and thinking about what happened and that the other person had some consequences too. Whether you think they deserved them or didn't deserve them is irrelevant. You still have to deal with that.
That's a very fair point. I mean, it's not just that. I mean, he didn't, and I assume, are you okay with mentioning his name?
We just use his first name. It's fine.
Yeah,
Steve.
Yeah, I knew it's who you were talking about. Yeah. And folks can learn about that case on your guys' website.
Sure.
But he didn't choose what happened to him. He didn't want that. He didn't ask for it. That's the nature of self-defense. But yet, he defended himself, and his actions, although justified, still are life-altering for somebody else, or those families, like you mentioned.
That's true.
That person had family and children and other people that cared about them too. Even if they made the wrong decision themselves, like you got to come to grips with, I still did something that has completely changed a whole other set of people's lives forever.
100%. Yeah, and obviously that's a sort of worst case scenario for any of our members or any person who carries a firearm, is that you have to discharge the firearm in self-defense and you take another person's life. And that's a rare occurrence in our membership. The daily sort of stuff that we see are much less dangerous than that. It's brandishing and road rage type of things, and where people are in fear of being harmed or killed, and they just display the firearm in order to de-escalate the situation. That still involves a pretty tough emotional toll, because most of us don't even ever draw the firearm other than at the range. To have to use it, that starts to add up emotionally. And then there's even legal expenses that occur from that, where you're going to get interviewed by the police. We are hiring an attorney to make sure that you're prepped for the interview. They go in with you for the interview. Even the lowest level sort of things that occur where there is some involvement in the system, right? We have plenty of low level things that occur where the police are like, yeah, all good. They go home. You never hear from them again. But that lowest level where it's like, oh no, you got to come in and explain yourself, that can easily just go from $800 to $2,000 just like that, just to get prepped for an interview and have a highly competent attorney. And when you have a membership with us, you have a great membership that's $209 a year. Well, you just paid 10 years of dues just for some simple little incident. So the return on investment is pretty high if you ever get involved in anything. And it's really high even if you just take part in all the educational and training materials, so that you know how to handle some situations, how to de-escalate, how to avoid it, withdraw. You talked about Stan. I keep telling the same story, but Stan, I was telling Stan when I've been in the company for a few months, and people are always asking us scenarios. Well, if I'm here and this happens and somebody does this, and, is it okay if I do that, or what should I do here? This. And Stan said, here's a really easy way to handle that question. He said, ask the person, what would you do if you didn't have the firearm? And so I've asked that to people many times over the years now, and their answer always is, I'd get the hell out of there. And they're like, that's it. That's the answer. If you can do that, get the hell out of there. You got nothing to prove to anybody. Forget your ego. Forget how angry you might be. Walk away.
Yeah.
Tell them you don't want any problem and walk away. If that hurts your ego, too bad. That's a lot better than getting shot, shooting somebody, or all the things in between that cause problems. So for the listeners out there, it's a pretty good litmus test for your situation. What would I do if I didn't have the firearm right now? Now, look, that's not to say you can always withdraw. You can't. There are times where it's like, I don't have a choice. I'm in the corner and something has to be done. And of course you need to do that. But there's a lot of situations that our members encounter where it's like, I'm just going to walk away or I'm going to drive away or whatever. And so
that's really wise and sage advice, because unfortunately there are many people out there probably that, and I understand why, because it can absolutely be this, but many people that view the firearm or having a firearm or carrying a firearm as, I have me a problem solver, right? And it is a problem solver when you have a problem that requires it.
Yeah.
The problem is when we start extending that problem solving ability into things that maybe don't require a firearm to solve the problem, and that creates some sticky situations. Well, let me see if you can answer this question.
Okay.
I mean, this is something that, I don't know. Let's just try this. Someone has a CCW Safe membership.
Mm-hmm.
When should they call you? Can you because I mean, it makes sense. It's like, well, I just shot somebody.
Of course.
Like, okay, I'm making a phone call.
So I'll give you the quick answer, which is not glib. It's like, you should call us right after you call 911.
Mm-hmm.
You need to call 911 first.
Mm-hmm.
Even the incidents where you're not shooting somebody, even some of these road rage deals where you want to be the first to call 911.
Yes.
Because the other person's probably going to call too. We had a member in an incident where they were literally they're both in their cars and they were both on the phone with 911 at the same time. Like the 911 operator told our member, well, the guy that you're having a problem with is also on the phone with us. So that pretty rare that's going to happen.
Right.
But you do always want to be the first to call 911. So side note, but back to your question, any self-defense incident, you want to report immediately to the police and then call us. Sometimes we have members where they haven't called 911, but they did something that they're concerned, like, I don't know if I'll hear from the police. I don't know if I have a problem. It's okay. Give us a call because we want to hear. A lot of the calls that come in on our emergency line technically aren't an emergency, but I try to sometimes tell people, it is an emergency line. I want you to think of it that way, but it's also a place to report the incident, even if it's not feeling like an emergency, so that we can do an assessment of what happened and what kind of resources may or not be needed.
Right.
And in most of those cases, it's literally Don, our National Trial Counsel, saying, okay, got it. We have everything in here. Really, the right thing to do right now is just wait and see if we hear from the police. And if you don't hear from the police, we don't need to do anything proactively in some of these situations. But if you're contacted by the police, then Don gives them his info and they just call Don directly, and then we start doing anything we need to do. So that happens kind of regularly. But so we would much rather have the member err on the side of telling us what's happened than wait till it's like, well, this thing happened 2 weeks ago and now the police are here. And we're like, whoa, okay. I mean, we can react to that, but we'd rather hear up front because we can get ahead of it.
Right.
Where it's like, oh, you are going to hear from the police, even if you haven't heard from them yet. So here's some things that we need to do. So
we're talking like this could be a situation where it's like, I don't know, maybe you live out, where it's kind of dark. You live on a larger piece of property, whatever. You go outside one night, you see somebody in the dark, dressed in a manner you can't really identify them very well. They threaten you. Maybe they have what appears to be a weapon in your hand. You draw your gun out of your holster, not necessarily pointed at them, but you just get, hey, they're threatening me or they appear to be threatening my life. Draw my gun out of the holster, issue some commands. That person runs off. I have hardly any description to work off of. Yeah, it's probably a good idea to call 911 still, but maybe you don't, because you're like, oh, they ran off, no harm, no foul, and I'll just move on with my life. Like, those kind of situations happen, don't they?
They do, and you should call us. Don's advice probably will be call 911 and report that.
Yep, yep.
But call us and tell us about that, because that person may leave your property and then they're calling 911.
Yep.
To say what. So you would much rather have gone ahead and called 911, even if nothing happened. The police get this kind of stuff all the time. They may not even come out, or if they come out, they're going to ask a few questions. They're going to take the report, and then that may be the end of it.
Yeah.
So we always want you to call 911.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries.
So you obviously have the emergency number. We were talking about,
Yep.
Hey, call an emergency number. Why? When should we call an emergency number? Why should we call the emergency number? You also have a non-emergency number. What kind of questions are good or appropriate to field on the non-emergency line?
Well, we get a lot of calls on it. That on that line, of course, we're doing all the sort of member, administration through that line.
Yep.
People
Customer
making
support.
payments and updating credit
Or
card
member
numbers.
Yep.
But we get a lot of inquiries there, sort of, here's some legislation that's going up in my state, and do you have an opinion on that? And the answer is we probably do. Or if we don't know about that legislation, we have an attorney in-house who will research it and get some information for you. We have sort of, sometimes people are just asking firearms ownership related questions or other interactions with the police related to firearms. Like we had a member call in, and I think it was maybe like their dad had passed away and he had 2 or 3 guns, and this was the daughter. And so she's like, I don't want these things. But I don't want to sell them or do anything like that. I just want to turn them over to the police. What's a good way to do that? And so, we have Chris and Gary, who between the two of them, it's, over 50 plus years of law enforcement experience. One of those took that ticket in our system, called them up and talked them through. And I think the answer was, okay, call your local police station, tell them what you have and what you're doing, and then they'll tell you what to do and how to handle it. They want them. They'll take them. But you need to let them know, don't just show up and walk in the door with these 3 guns. And I think if I remember, the outcome was they said, because the member called back and they said they were happy to handle it. And they said, put them in the trunk of your car, get to the police station, call inside, ask for me, and then just be standing outside your car with the trunk closed, and I'll come out, and then you can open the trunk, and I'm going to take them, and then we'll fill out a little report and be done with it. And so we get things like that. We're happy to help with that. Is that self-defense related? No. But we have the knowledge on staff to handle, things like that.
See, and I'm glad you addressed that, because, again, I think that shows that you care about and take care of your members. Because it would be really easy as a business or an organization to just be like, well, that's not really, within our purview.
Yeah. And, the one thing we don't do just through that non-emergency line is we don't do real legal advice.
Right.
That's a whole different standard. We're happy to talk to people. We're happy to answer questions, refer them to information. We'll research some things. Again, we have so much knowledge in-house, we can probably answer things. But if somebody's calling up looking for, the legal term, legal advice, we don't do that. So we're hiring attorneys. So now if you have your self-defense incident, of course, we're hiring and getting the right attorneys. But if it's, pure legal advice, non-related to your incident, we don't do that.
Yeah.
But our members don't expect us to do that. So we do as much as we can within reason to just try to make our members' lives easier. And it's like that situation I just described. I'm like, I have 2 people sitting right here who probably were involved in that 100 times in their career. They know exactly what the answer is. It takes 5 minutes to get the person the right information. So we're happy to be of service.
Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Kent, you've been with CCW Safe for about 3.5 years.
Right.
Leading things as president. In that time, there's been some changes, right? There's been growth.
Sure.
What are some of kind of your main focal points or initiatives? Where are you trying to take CCW Safe today?
We're pretty clear on the mission at CCW Safe, right? caring for our members in the aftermath of a self-defense incident, providing training and education so they can avoid an incident if possible.
Mm-hmm.
That part doesn't change. So we're growing rapidly, so the scale changes, the amount of resources we need to effectively do that changes. So for me in my role, one of the focus areas is to make sure that we continually have the resources we need to effectively serve the members as the membership grows, as it grows in a specific geographic area, to not just have that present, but have contingency plans in place for anything that might happen if there were a sudden increase in member incidents, maybe because of some, social change like the riots years ago where in theory there's going to be an increase in incidents, or maybe if it's in California and now everybody's trying to loot your house after it burned to the ground. We haven't had anything happen from that, but we had a contingency plan when we saw that going down and started seeing that reporting. It's like, okay, well, what if we get 2 or 3 very serious calls in 1 hour, on tomorrow night? Like, what's the plan? And so really just trying to look around the corner and see what's coming and make sure that we're resourced appropriately. And when Mike and Stan and Kyle hired me, the one thing they were very clear about was, hey, we have all these business things that you know how to do that we don't know how to do. And so, but we're never going to take our eye off the North Star, which is taking care of the member. So keep that, to another point you made earlier, keep our culture intact, which is member-focused, service-oriented, treat people the way we would want to be treated, treat our members like family, then do all the other things you need to do to ensure the continuation and the success of the business, and that's really what I do. The other things that are going on right now is our Certified Partner Program. Mm-hmm. So traditionally, CCW Safe has primarily gone to market just through the website. We've had videos and we've had great partners like you, and we sponsor podcasts and do different things to create awareness and drive people to the website and get them to sign up. We hadn't done a ton with the firearms training community, the retail gun stores, ranges, other facilities. And there's a lot of people that become aware of our industry through those 3 things, retail, ranges, and instructors. And that becomes the point where they learn about it and they're ready to sign up and get a service. And so sometimes we don't get seen or heard in those scenarios. So we're now actively working with that community to make sure that when they do a concealed carry permit class in Denver, that at the conclusion of the class, they're telling folks, okay, now that you have your permit, now that this is something you need to have, and here's the right company to be with, to select, to take care of you. And so that's a real focus for us. So we're really just trying to grow the membership so we can take care of more people. And there, as you know, there's some things going on with other people in the industry that's creating some confusion and concern. We're not part of any of that. We do things differently, so we want to make sure that responsible firearms owners hear about the responsible source to get the service and people who are really going to respond and take care of them, and that they never have to worry about, is this person I signed up with really going to be there for me?
Right.
The answer is yes. And I always say, look, go Google CCW Safe. Go try to Google something negative like CCW Safe didn't cover me or wouldn't or drop whatever. You can't find anything. Right. There's no video of a guy saying, oh, they did this to me and it was terrible, because we don't do it. We always have a bias to take care of the members. When they call us and report their incident, that's all the information we have is what they're telling us. And so that's the truth. We're acting on that and deploying resources immediately, and away we go. We're not we're not an insurance company. We're not trying to find ways to deny coverage or not cover it. We're trying to find ways to serve you immediately. So we don't wait around for more information. Like when it's time to go, we giddy up. We're hiring attorneys. If we need to send someone on site, we send them on site. Whatever is needed, we start doing that based on what the member tells us, because that's the original source of the information, and we assume that they're telling us the truth, and they usually are.
Yeah. Yep. So, that's a very valid point, and a very valid question. Question being, you basically just answered it. How do I know, if I become a member, how do I know you're really going to have my back? And I'll tell you, the answer I've given is that, well, there's a proven track record with your company of
Right.
actually following through on that, and actually following through in such a way, like the case we mentioned earlier, of actually sticking by somebody in a difficult case. Not that it wasn't, it was a justified case, but it was still a difficult case with prosecutors that wanted to come after somebody, and you guys stood behind your member, backed him up the whole way through, paid for his defense, all the way through to an acquittal. Like that's evidence that you will stand behind your members even in times where it's like, ooh, this could be difficult.
Yeah, I guess we don't even think about it as difficult. Sometimes, of course, our members get into situations and it's super clear cut. They did all the right things. All the sort of standards for self-defense, we've checked all the boxes, and sometimes there's still a legal situation we have to deal with. But just because it doesn't look perfect doesn't mean it wasn't justified,
right,
or correct, or however you want to describe it. So we're in the fight with them. Don West likes to call it the second fight. You survived the first fight.
Yes.
And now you have the second fight, which is going to be with the legal justice system. So we're in the fight immediately, and we're not judge and jury. And if even in our cases, we're seeing it through. So if we have a member that gets into a trial or gets into the process, there's going to be occasions where it might be favorable for them to take a plea bargain. Now that's between them and the attorney that we hire. We're not involved in that decision. Our regard is only for the best outcome for the member, so we don't encourage them or discourage them from that decision. That's between the attorney and them. That's fine by us. There's some people in the industry who have some insurance restrictions where you take the plea bargain, you're now guilty of whatever that lower level crime is, and they have to ask for the money back that they spent on your behalf, because that's the way the insurance industry works. So
it's regulated.
Right. Our structure is not like that. So you want to take a plea and that's favorable for you? Fine by us. We're not asking for the money back. Okay. You don't take the plea. You go to trial. You lose. You want to have it? Fine by us. We're not happy. We want you to get a favorable outcome.
Looking for the best outcome for the member.
That's right.
Right.
But if they do lose, we're not asking for the money back. Yeah. If they want to appeal and that makes sense, we'll pay for the appeal. We're in it with the member the whole way, regardless of the outcome. I do believe, this is not a standard or anything, but I do honestly believe that working with our team and the resources that we have and the people that we hire on your behalf, you will get the best possible outcome for the circumstances of your case. Significantly better a material part of the time than you can do on your own, because most people can't resource themselves the way that we can. We have an unlimited budget for the defense costs. We have an unlimited budget for the private investigators, the expert witnesses, the forensic, all that kind of stuff.
And these are things that people don't necessarily think about. They think, I'll just go hire an attorney. But then it's like, but you need other experts.
Yeah, and it starts with the right attorney. A common question we get, Riley, as members join, and they go, well, can I pick my own attorney, or I have an attorney that I want to use? Can I get that on file? And the answer is yes, you can get it on file. We're still going to vet them.
Yes.
And there's been a number of cases over the years where we've vetted and used the person that the member wanted. There's been a number of times where we didn't, where, they're like, hey, this guy did a great job on my divorce. We're like, yeah, no, that's not going to help us in this situation. We need every person that we pick and vet is based on the specific circumstances of your incident. So, like, you guys are in the Denver metro area, so we could have 3 incidents in Denver in the same week. We don't. That's a lot. But if there were, and let's say one was brandishing and one was a home invasion where the member had a shoot and they killed the person,
right,
that's probably 2 different attorneys.
Right.
Like, we need a very specific skill set, and let's say that member's charged with murder. We want trial experience in a self-defense case with a potential murder one outcome. That's the standard for that one. The brandishing one, we probably don't need that same person. We need a person who's doing a lot of those types of cases. So it's very customized. It's not a list. It's not we have 2 guys in Denver and that's all we use. Every situation we're dialing in. Now, are there some cities where we use the same person more than once? Of course, because they've had success and it's the same type of case, or they have the requirements for whatever the new case is. Right. But we don't do lists. Other people do a list.
Yep.
I was Kyle Sweet, who's Kyle, one of our founders. He's an attorney. I think his position, when I talked about it with him one time, he's like, that's the most preposterous thing ever, that you would try to either pick your own attorney or they would send you a list. So, Riley, I don't know your wife's name, but if you were in jail and they sent the list, they can't send it to you. They're not delivering a fax or
email
a PDF to you in jail. So your wife's going to get it, and there's 10 attorneys on there. Which one are we going to pick?
Yeah.
Which one is right under the circumstances? So we just have a different system. It's just custom. Sometimes I use the word concierge. They can some people identify with that.
Yeah.
But it's a high touch, high service, personal concierge approach to making sure that everything we do is the best for you and it's specific to you. There's nothing cookie cutter about it. We're not running a standard playbook with the same attorneys all the time. Every situation is different.
I don't think people maybe realize just like how big a deal that is. And they should also know, too, that like one of the reasons why you'd want to be a member of CCW Safe is because there is the expertise on your team to help guide and make those decisions, because you have attorneys, including attorneys like Don West with very high-profile trial case experience.
Yeah.
You have guys that have been cops. You have guys that have been investigators. You have guys, that have worked in so many different facets of that world that can provide the feedback and be like, this is what we need for this. We've seen this not just once, we've seen it a dozen times or whatever it is.
Yeah, Don loves working at CCW Safe. I'm going to paraphrase something he said to me one time. He goes, "This is the best place I've ever been in my career because I get to help people. I have an unlimited wallet. The budget is unlimited. I can get the best of the best. I don't have to worry about who's paying for it. My odds of success for the member are increased because of that." He goes, "It's like a pleasure, to be able to just do whatever I think is right in getting the attorneys, paying for the experts, anything it's like an unlimited resources to get the member to be taken care of. And then to turn it over to people like our critical response team to take care of them in person and do all these. So Don is this is the right place to be, and he really, really cares about the people he talks to on that emergency hotline, whether it's 2 a.m. or 2 p.m.
Well, and to that point, here's another question for you. I know the answer, but I want people to hear this. I asked the earlier question about how do people know that you're going to actually back them up, that you're actually going to cover them. Here's the follow-up question to that. You have an emergency hotline. I'm in an incident. That incident may happen any time of day, any which way. And how do I know if I call that emergency line, like somebody's going to be there and somebody that can actually guide me in that moment, in my moment of need, of tremendous need, and perhaps even panic?
Yeah. So
what does that look like, that phone call?
We have a service that monitors the phone line 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. They answer every call. That's for lack of a better phrase, is an operator. So they make sure the call is answered, and then they ask 3 or 4 quick questions just to orient the call and get us information. So first we're asking the person if they're a member.
Yep.
We've had members of other services call our hotline before. They're like, "Yeah, this is USCCA." Like, no, not this number. We give them the other number to call. But, okay, is it an emergency? And sometimes people say, "Well, no, I'm just updating my credit card number." And we're like, "No, not on this line." And so it's like 30 seconds. And then we get current contact information, because in the aftermath of an incident, they may not be using the phone that we have on file. The police may have their phone. They may be on their wife's phone or neighbor. We had a guy who was on his neighbor's phone who gave us his neighbor's information a couple months ago. So we're getting good contact information. If for some reason we become disconnected on the call, they're on a cell phone and this call drops, we've all had that happen. So we want to make sure that we immediately have that in case for some reason we don't keep the call going through no fault of anybody's. Then they patch that call through to Don. So it takes about 30 seconds to get through the first questions, and then they patch it through to Don. Don has his phone on, of course, 24 hours a day. He takes vacation sometimes. So we have Jennifer Chance, who's another one of our in-house attorneys. She was 10, 12 years as a prosecutor, actually, in Oklahoma City. So she has the whole perspective from that.
She knows how that other side works.
Yeah, she absolutely does. She's amazing. She also was the assistant general counsel to the governor of Oklahoma years ago. So she does legislative research and other things for us. But back to the question. So there's a list.
The point is, somebody is going to...
Yes. So for some reason, Don doesn't answer. The call rolls to Jennifer. If for some reason she doesn't answer, it never happens like this, but I'll just walk you through the process. Then the call rolls to Kyle, who's also an attorney. So there's 3 attorneys stacked up there. Don gets 98% of the calls. Jennifer gets 2. Kyle gets like almost 0. I think he had 1 3 years ago. They made it down to him. So you're going to talk to an attorney and you're going to have a privileged conversation. And we've had that. Some people in the industry are like, oh, that's not privileged, and like we verified that with an independent third-party attorney. All of our processes have been vetted by someone else to make sure that we have the protections in place for the members. So when the act of the call transferring from the operator to Don, it generates a group text to 8 people.
And I've seen that happen.
Yeah, it's an automated system. For all you computer guys out there, there's a little API that kicks in, and the information gathered in the screening gets transmitted to 8 people, including Don, Jennifer, Kyle, Stan, Mike, myself, Chris, Gary, and David Darter in our office. And so we all get activated 24 hours a day. We have another system that's automated as well that triggers at the same time, and it starts talking to our member database, just looking for that member in our system, pulling in their standard contact information into a different app. So all this automation, and every time that system does something, it makes your phone make a noise too. So even if it's in the middle of the night, it's not just like if you got your text on and it's one ding and you didn't hear it. Like there's multiple things going on with your phone to get you going. And so, there's redundancy built in with the attorneys. And so that activates everybody. Then our critical response team starts reporting in 24 hours a day, standing by. The other attorneys standing by. So everybody's reporting in, so we know who's on and available. Unless somebody's on vacation, they're reporting in, standing by.
Right.
Then we're waiting. We're waiting for information from Don or Jennifer, depending on who took the call, on what we need to do next. And so if what we would call CRT, critical response team, on site is needed, they're going to put that in the text. And through our other tool, there's redundancy. So people are like, well, sometimes you don't get a text. Well, we have redundancy, and it goes through an independent app in our phone, and we get notified through that too. So they notify, and then if it's like critical response needed, well, because of the location, then that team starts responding with flight information.
Yeah.
Like let's say
I can get there by
whatever, St. Louis, and they go, you know what, here's American flight 342, lands at 8:45. I can be on the scene at 9:45, whatever it is. And so they start reporting in so that we can get them deployed and have help as soon as possible. If critical response is not needed, Don will give us a very sort of thumbnail of what's going on, again, because we don't want privileged information there. We don't need it to cover the person. We don't need it to deploy the resources. Don has that. And so then he's just giving us enough to say, here's kind of where we're at, and I'm going to retain an attorney immediately, or, you know what, we don't need to do anything right now. We're going to wait to see if the police follow up on this one or not, and then we go from there. So that's really how it gets
That's cool.
initiated. And there literally is 8 people in that group that are ready to go. I'm on it. I get it 24 hours a day. I've spent 30 minutes at my kitchen table at 3 o'clock in the morning waiting for Don to give the update, because sometimes the conversations take a long time. So we get the answer in 5 minutes sometimes, and then sometimes it's 30 minutes, and that's okay.
Yep.
And so it has been a foolproof system. We've never missed a call. We've never had one where nobody answered.
Yeah.
That was part of, back to your question earlier about what they asked me to do and why I'm here. Building those systems correctly, getting the redundancies that we need so the members are served better.
Yeah. That is so key. And I appreciate it. It may, even to you, like where you're so involved in the nuts and bolts on a daily basis, it's like, it may not seem like a big deal to you, but I think that's really cool and helpful for members and prospective members to hear, like, this is how this works. This is what happens when a call comes in, so that they can see, oh, they're going to get my call. They're going to hear my call. They're going to, communicate with me. They're going to activate the critical response team if that's what's necessary, meaning putting boots on ground where I am to be right there to essentially, and sometimes literally, hold my hand through an incident.
Yeah, and we get activated not knowing what's happened, because we intentionally, on that little screening portion of the call, the operator actually gives the instruction to the caller to say, do not tell me what happened. Do not tell me the specifics. We just need to know if this is considered an emergency or not, because that part of the call is not privileged. And so they're really great about that. And if the person starts talking, they're like, no, stop. I'm going to transfer you to the attorney right now.
Right.
And then they patch it through. So we have all the protocols in place, the redundancy in place. I mean, like, this is a real professional thing. And so it's not like, well, I hope Don picks up the phone. Like it just, you dial Don's cell phone number and maybe he's around. It's not like that. It's a very sophisticated process that takes place. And so,
and as you mentioned, with redundancy, which is so key with something like that.
Redundancy, yeah. I mean, and then there's fail safes even there and beyond that I don't want to go into every single detail, but I think people can rest comfortably knowing the right person is going to answer the phone. They know what to do. The other part of the team is on standby, ready to go if we need them. Most of the incidents don't require the critical response team to go on site, but they should know, even if you're calling in about your brandishing incident where we're not going to respond on site, those people are still standing by until we know what your level of the incident was. Yep. Like, they're literally waiting to find out if they need to be deployed. And so we start right there.
And as I mentioned, I mean, you guys take this seriously. I mentioned earlier, I've seen it happen. I was at dinner with several of your team that are on that list, that critical response team group, sitting, having dinner, having a lovely conversation after a show. It wasn't SHOT Show, but it was a show kind of like this. And all of a sudden, and you knew something was up because every one of their phones went off. Yeah. And then every one of them's like, oh, what's going on? Okay, we have an incident. Okay, all right. And then they're like waiting for more information, And then it turned out, I think, that, we don't need to go anywhere just yet. And so we went back to having dinner and
carry on.
But they're ready to go in case, they need to.
I was interviewing someone. We're hiring some people. And I was doing a Zoom interview with this person who wants to work for us, and he's a great guy. And I said to him, even on Zoom, I'm like, just so you know, my phone is on, and I do look at it occasionally. I don't want it to seem rude. I go, but if we get an emergency call at any time, I need to look at that and tend to that for a minute. I said, but the odds of that happening during our 1 hour Zoom call is 10,000 to 1. 5 minutes later, emergency call. And I said, well, if you want to know what it's like to work here and be part of this team, I said, I'm going to go on mute, but you're
getting this
I got a few things that I got to do now that this has come in. I got a report standing by. I have a role in those calls. And then I'm like, then I'll jump back on. And he said, well, what happens now? I go, now we're waiting.
Yeah.
And that was another one like in your situation where we didn't really need to do a lot right in that moment. And I go, okay, well, let's get back to the interview. So It happens all day long. Yep.
Yeah.
My wife gets it. She's tolerant. I used to, like the first couple, I would get them at 2:00 in the morning. And I knew like, oh, we may not find out for a while. So I'll just lay here in bed and, wait for Don to update. But I can't get away with that anymore. I have to go. I have to go in the other room. My wife's like, don't be in here laying awake waiting for this result. And so she's very patient and understanding. To give you one quick anecdote about her. She knows what we do. Obviously, at the company, we had a very serious incident about a year and a half ago. Maybe it was 2 years now. And when we deploy the team on the ground, at the end of their first day on the ground, we have a recap call.
Yeah.
All those 8 people that get activated, we all jump on a Zoom call, and they report in everything that's happened, where we're at, is the member bailed out, is whatever's going on. And this was on a Friday night. It was like 8 or 9 o'clock at night. I was sitting at the dining room table at home, and I had my laptop open, and we're doing the call, and it was about an hour. And I closed the laptop, and I just sighed, just took a deep breath because it was a lot. It was a lot going on. I was like, whew. And I turned around, and my wife had been standing in the background, kind of observing the whole call. I didn't know it. And she looked, and she pointed at the laptop, and she said, that's what you do? Like, that's what you do when somebody's in this horrible situation? And I said, yeah. She's like, that was unreal. She goes, if people saw that, everybody would sign up immediately. And I said, well, we try to tell people what that is. I can't show them that because there's some things on there that we can't show.
Right.
And she said, well, there's 2 things that stood out to me on that. She said, there's 7 or 8 people on that call. She said, every person on there only talked about what would help the member. It was like, okay, we got a biohazard cleanup team scheduled to get his house ready to return to him as soon as the police release it. Somebody was trying to already start getting his counseling services arranged. And we're talking about less than 36 hours after the incident.
Yeah.
Somebody, in this case, he got arrested in his home in the middle of the night. He couldn't go back. He didn't have clothes. And so we had already bought clothes for him and had a hotel room for him and, gotten him food. And he was in a small town, didn't want to be seen in a restaurant. So we're like, no problems. We'd gone to Target and bought him some, jeans and T-shirts or whatever it was. And so she said, everybody on there is just like, each had their own thing to help this person. She was really incredible to see that. And then she said, the other thing that stood out is nobody ever said, well, what does that cost? Or how much is this? Or is that really part of what we do? She goes, I know you approve everything, but you were basically like, stop asking, just do. Oh yeah, fine, do it. This guy is in the worst possible situation. He's used his firearm inside his home. The person that was attacking him is deceased. He's been arrested. He's been charged. They set his bond at $1 million. I mean,
oh, wow.
Cannot be it's just horrific. And I said, yeah, this is whatever the business portion of that is just totally immaterial to taking care of this person. Anyway, so she was like, that's unbelievable. She goes, I knew you guys were great and I knew you did these things, but to see the level of care for the member and the total lack of concern for what anything costs, that it really was just whatever is needed to get this guy through today, tomorrow, and then on into the process. And so I always think that that's a pretty good endorsement because my wife's hard to impress. I can
and I appreciate you sharing that anecdote as well. That is okay. Well, I think we've just kind of come full circle, Kent. I started this off by basically saying what got me on board in the beginning was just seeing how initially the founders of the company care about people. And you just told a story about how what you do is caring for and about people, your members. So I can't think of a better argument to be made. If someone's listening to this and thinking, I'm on the fence, or I already belong to this organization, but I'm maybe thinking about something, making a change. I can't think of a stronger case than what you just made right there.
Yeah, appreciate all the kind words. And I'll close with this to say, I don't believe anybody would ever regret becoming a member of ours. They just won't. That we really are just focused on taking care of them. And the founders, they did all the heavy lifting years before I got there. They set the culture. They set the standard for what the service is. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't change. There's some of the things we do behind the scenes change. Okay, we had to get new systems and get the redundancies and all that. Do the members really care about that? Yeah, they do. It's nice for them to hear and know. But the core mission of personal care, high touch, high experience, amazing service, that doesn't change. And it's the worst moment of your life you're going to go through to know that you have all the expertise and all these people caring for you. That never changes. And people should have some peace of mind in knowing that our team is sitting by the phone literally 24 hours a day.
Awesome. So, folks, those of you listening and thinking about membership, you should head on over to ccwsafe.com.
Yeah,
and check out the plans. Yeah, give them a call. There you go.
Yeah, if you have questions, I have a staff of folks that answer the phones 8 to 5 Central Time. Our least tenured person on there, I think, is at 3 years, and we don't have a lot of turnover because we treat our employees the same way that we treat our members, and we treat our partners like concealed carry the same way that we would want to be treated. So there's a lot of experienced people who can answer all your questions. They're patient. They love to talk to folks about the business, and we would love to have anybody in this audience become a member,
right?
And we'd be happy to have them.
And then also, if folks listening happen to be a firearms instructor,
oh yes,
a shooting range, a firearm retailer, the certified partner program, you're going to want to take a look at. And what's the best way for them to learn more about that?
So you can go at ccwsafe.com/partner and see a little overview there. There's a form you can fill out and give us a little info. We'll contact you, or you can call the main 800 number and ask for Garrett, who's runs our affiliate team, and he can give you a little information on what we're doing. We have a great program for the partners to help them get educated, be able to explain what we're doing, share, and that it's beneficial to them as well. So yeah, give us a call. We would love to help you out. And if you need help in your location spreading the word, we have resources around the country too. So yeah, ccwsafe.com/partner.
Excellent. Kent, thank you for your time today.
Awesome.
I know you're a busy guy, and it's a busy show, and it's been exciting to see the interest that you've had here in the booth. A lot of people stopping by and talking to you all. So hope that continues for you. And of course, we wish you the best of success, and we're thankful to be a part of your journey in any way, and in any small way as well, whatever way that is.
Awesome.
So thank you for having us.
Thanks, Riley.
Great. There you have it. I hope you really enjoyed this interview with Kent Brown and what makes their company so unique over there at CCW Safe. I hope that you got the sense like I did, and like I've had for years now. This is one of the reasons why we've been partners with them for a number of years. They're a sponsor of this podcast. They're a sponsor of our Guardian Conference that we hold each year in September. They have been big supporters of ours, and we are big supporters of theirs because they truly care about their members and stand behind them and take care of them. And I think that you probably could tell that by listening to Kent's interview here with me today. A reminder of our supporters and sponsors of the podcast today, which again, ccwsafe.com and also guardiannation.com. Check out those websites to learn more and consider getting signed up today. With that, I'm going to let you go. A reminder to train right, train often, and train safe so you can fight hard, fight fast, and fight true. Take care. A reminder that laws vary from place to place, and we encourage listeners to seek local legal advice to understand applicable laws. Concealed Carry Inc., its brands and properties, and the Concealed Carry Podcast is not a legal service, nor are we attorneys at law. We make our best faith effort to share concealed carry-related insights and information about firearm-related incidents and the laws pertaining based on our own understanding and experience. But things could be different where you live, or laws may have changed by the time you listen to this. We cannot be held liable for your actions based on the information shared in this podcast. Please exercise care with all things pertaining to firearm use, concealed carry, and always practice following basic firearm safety rules. More information about safety can be found at concealedcarry.com/